to everyone about the...
תפעיל את הגמש.
כן, מאוד
ספונטנית,
כדי שהמצגת תהיה אופטימלית, אז יוני ידבר בעצמו, ומי שיש לו שאלות אחרי זה, אז אחרי זה נתרגם את הכל בסוף.
Maybe you can try to slower.
I will do that, thank you. That's a good idea. When it comes time for questions, you can ask questions in Hebrew. I'll probably understand. If not, Tiki will explain. So Harlem is the neighborhood, as Tiki was saying. It's okay, sorry. My name is Yoni. I studied engineering at Columbia. I worked for many years for Bovis Lend-Lease, which is an international construction management company. I worked in Israel for 3 years on the Nafag Alpine project. I wanted to stay in Israel. My wife wanted to go. Eventually, I gave in. But I love Israel, and I love having the opportunity to come back every time I get the chance. I worked, when I came back from Israel, I got a job working for a developer who was doing new condominium buildings in Harlem. And I was supervising the construction for him, but while I was there, I got to learn all about development, all about the real estate side of it, all about the finance and how to do it. And in 2010, when the market was very slow after the crash, a lot of people were skeptical about real estate, but I thought there was still a lot of potential, especially in Harlem. And we were able to get together, myself, some family members, some friends, and some people that I knew from my contacts working for a developer. We were able to put together a deal on 127th Street in Harlem, which was a vacant lot at the time. Let me first talk a little bit about Harlem. So Harlem was originally a Dutch colony. The neighborhood changed many times over the decades. It was actually a very large Jewish community in about 1910, and you can still see today, if you walk around, you'll see in a lot of the churches, you'll see a Jewish star engraved in the cornerstone. It used to be a shul. But the neighborhood changed a lot with the Great Depression. A lot of Jews moved out, and a lot of African Americans were moving from the South, where they were, not treated fairly. They came to move up north. They went to New York, and a lot of them were coming to New York to Harlem, just as the Jews and the Italians were moving out. And after the war, there was high unemployment. The neighborhood went into decline. There were a lot of problems over especially in the 70s and 80s with drugs. But now, today, the neighborhood is again changing dramatically. What you have now, this is just from 2000 to 2014, changed a lot. Incomes are rising. There's now, we were at 9% that we're making between $100,000 and $250,000 a year. That's kind of the target market for these condos. And it's gone from 9 to 13%. And there's even a growing population that are making above $250,000 a year. And it used to be somewhat of a stigma for people to move to Harlem. It used to be considered a black neighborhood, and people who weren't black didn't feel comfortable there. But it's become very diverse now. There's all kinds of people from all over the world who are moving there. As you can see, the demographics are changing. So this was 5 West 127th Street. It was just a vacant lot. No one had built on it in a long time, and we were able to turn it within 18 months of when we started construction. We built it into a 13-unit condominium building, and the market was so strong by the time we had finished. We actually sold every unit in the building before we even finished construction. We sold it on paper. We had a model apartment, and it did really well. And because of that success, more people wanted to invest. We bought another property, a little bigger, just 2 blocks away. It had a vacant lot and an old 1-story building, which used to be owned by the church. Actually, if you look in the back, you'll see the Mormon church that owned it. But it was, no one had been in there at all for a very long time. It was full of mold and asbestos. So we knocked it down, and when we started construction, the whole block actually started to change because people saw the changes that were coming along with it. Right next door to this ugly building was a barber shop that had been shuttered for years and was covered with graffiti. And they actually built a very trendy coffee shop there called Lennox Coffee. And you have young hipsters, they call them, professionals who are you know, they're in there all hours of the day and night on their laptops with the Wi-Fi, and it really made a big difference to have these LGBT mixers on Thursday nights. And you know, when people came there, they also saw our big sign, for sale sign, and it really helped sales. So this is the building we built. It has 19 residential units. With on the ground floor, we had a commercial space that was restricted commercial space. It's called community facility space. You could only have a tenant there who does some sort of nonprofit or a daycare or medical. We ended up getting the Jazz Museum in Harlem to rent that space. And all the units above were sold again before we even finished construction. We recently sold the ground floor commercial space with the Jazz Museum in as a tenant to an investor.
I just want to interrupt for a second. רק רוצה להוסיף פה. אני אישית הייתי בשני הבניינים האלה כמה וכמה פעמים.
Finished those two buildings. We have two buildings that are in construction now a little further west. This is Convent Avenue. This is what it originally looked like, and it's under construction. This is what it's going to look like when we're done. This is the rendering. You can see we try to get you know, as many balconies as we could, and this will have a lot of amenity space on it. And we have another one, I don't have a rendering of it, but 2 blocks north on 130th and Convent. This here is a church building. We're looking right now to do 2 new buildings when we finish the convent jobs, and this is really what I'm here for. One of them is on Adam Clayton Powell, and I'll talk about that. We'll have a separate slideshow for that afterwards. The other one is this church building. I think this one actually was also a Beit Knesset at one point. The idea is to knock it down, to build a new building and put the church back in, give them a lot of money and a lot more space in a brand new building, plus, and of course, the pastor wanted an apartment for himself. He's getting that. This is a rendering of what it will eventually look like.
Where's the church?
I'm sorry?
Where's the church?
So it's going to be in there, even though it doesn't look like it's so much on the outside.
You hide it?
No, well, I guess when you're looking at it from 100 feet up, you don't really see it. But from the ground floor, there'll be an awning for it, and then the upper floor, and it's also going to be the basement. It's a Baptist church, so it's going to have a pool or like a mikvah down in the basement. I know that a lot of people, when I speak to them about investing in New York real estate, a lot of them tell me, that they heard that the Manhattan condo market is slowing down. And that's been in the news a little bit, but it's a little bit misleading. What they're talking about and what they've been reporting on really applies to a totally different market. This is 157. About the same time that I was buying the building and starting it in Harlem on 127th Street, Gary Barnett, who many of you probably know, was doing this tower building on Central Park South. That's 57th Street. That's really the prime location in Manhattan.
רגע, sorry for interrupting. גארי ברנט הוא המנכ"ל של חברה שנקרא נקסל. נקסל זו חברה שגייסה בארץ 1.3 מיליארד שקל בשני גיוסים באג"ח בבורסה הישראלית. רוב קרנות הפנסיה וההשתלמות בארץ מושקעות בחברה הזאת. הם נכנסו בסיבוב הראשון או בסיבוב השני. אריק שלו חטף מכה מאוד רצינית בזמן האחרון. בגלל שמחירי היוקרה, ותכף יוני ידבר על זה, של הדירות האלה הוא קצת בעייתי.
So we're looking to sell our apartments for about $1,100 a square foot, which is $11,000 per. These here in this building, they were going for $10,000 a square foot. People were buying apartments for $20-30 million. These are the wealthiest people in New York, and he did so well in this building, even though now he's dropping prices. He had already made so much money.
You're talking about the high rise?
This high rise here, yeah. I'll get to my point. People started copying him, and this is what the skyline is going to look like in a few years in Manhattan. His building was number 6. You can see all these other buildings that they're building here. They're calling it Billionaires Row.
It's all 57?
These are all 56, 57, that whole area overlooking the park. And each one of these buildings is taller than any building.
The plaza?
Sorry? This is Central Park that you see on the bottom.
The white building over there, the plaza?
Yeah. So that's like 432 Park Avenue on the left. That's going to be taller than the Empire State Building. they did a tremendous amount of these, you know, super high-end luxury buildings, and it's really a very different market than what we're doing. I got these pie charts from brokers that are selling our units. They also sell some of these high-end ones, and they have research showing that this $0 to $2 million, that's kind of our target market for condos in Harlem, whereas the ones on Billionaires Row are in that gray slice, $5 million plus. That was about 3% of the market in 2007. Now, because of all of that development, that's gone up to 11% of the market, and we're down to 62. So they really overbuilt for that, you know, for that demographic of super high end, and that created, you know, downward price pressure on those types of units. What you see here is these are units on the market, new condo, you know, new building condominium market units on the market. The 5 million plus is 43%. You can see more than 50% is for people who can afford to buy $4 million and up apartments, which is a pretty small percentage of the population. Whereas this 1 to 2 is only 19%. And if you look at what's selling, you can see that there's actually more than being sold for 1 million to 2 million than the super high end. So I think that, you know, some people are nervous about the very high end market, but I don't think they need to be nervous that it's going to affect what we're doing in Harlem, because it's really apples and oranges, night and day. So so that's what we're doing in a nutshell. I have another slide here talking about a specific project that I'm looking to get financing for.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you do with the public space, like you rented out the museum?
Right, that's community facility space. So it's not a lot better if we had the museum in it. It actually was very difficult, but it was worth it. It was difficult because the architect was very, very nervous about putting a jazz museum underneath where people live. And I hired an acoustic consultant to review it, and he said we can do a lot to try to keep the noise in, because they occasionally have performances, and you know, it's right underneath where people live. We put the ceilings on vibration isolators so it would keep the noise in. We did 2 layers of sheetrock. We did everything we could to try and keep the noise in. But the architect still said he didn't want to get sued, he doesn't want to get involved, and we almost dropped them as a tenant as a result. But we found another architect. They really wanted to go in, and when I spoke to the tenants about it, most of them thought it was really cool, and it would help their resale value, and they would be invited to come to their events. And so far there haven't been any complaints. So, you know, we were nervous about it, but we're glad we did it, and I think it was good for us and for the neighborhood.
What is sheetrock?
Get it.
What type of yield can you sell though? What did you sell that?
So that one 58 West 129th Street, we pretty much doubled everyone's money. And that's, you know, again, like Tiki said, I don't want to set expectations to that. That came at a time when people, you know, when the condominium market was really exploding. We normally budget for about a 50% return to investors, and that one was 100% because it's all. That's the ROI. I'm sorry, not ROI, over a 3-year period.
I was asking on the retail space.
Oh, I see. Oh, the cap rate. It's about, I think it's about 6.5%. Someone can do the math. It sold for $1,520,000, and their rent was $95,000 a year, triple net, meaning that they paid the taxes and the common charges. And the reason it has a high cap rate is because you know, there's only certain tenants that can go in there. When you're talking about residential spaces, usually the cap rate is about 5%, which is historically low, but you know, that's what it gets nowadays, because there's very little vacancy in Manhattan.
What do
יוני
you do
עכשיו
on
ידבר
that?
על פרויקט, אולי אחרי זה שאלות נוספות, אני רוצה שנעמוד בלוחות זמנים. ידבר על פרויקט ספציפי שאנחנו עושים יחד עם יוני בהרלם. הוא נגע בזה טיפה מקודם, אבל עכשיו ירחיב על זה טיפה. ואחרי זה אני אגע בצד הפיננסי של הפרויקט הזה, וגם יש לו כמה יתרונות מאוד רציניים.
So this is a property, I think it's probably the largest vacant property in central Harlem. People have been trying to buy it for years, but it was owned by a very strange guy who bought it in the 50s for probably less than $1,000. And I met with him many times. He likes to meet with me and talk for hours and hours and hours, and I can't talk business until we finished eating.
How many years have you been in touch with him?
Probably about 5 years. He's a disciple of Malcolm X, and he loves telling me stories about the great old days of Harlem and Malcolm X and just everything. It just goes on and on and on. And then usually we say, all right, let's talk business, and he'll come up with some completely ridiculous offer, and there's no way I could do it, and I just wasted all my time. But I was persistent. I kept bugging him about it. It wasn't on the market. He wanted to rent it out because he said, oh, I don't want to sell Harlem. He doesn't want to be part of the whole changing neighborhood. He wanted to do a ground lease, which is, you lease the space for 99 years, you can build on it, but you have to do it as a co-op, which Aaron was starting to explain. I don't want to get into the whole difference between co-op and condo, but in a nutshell, the condos sell for 20% more. I didn't want to do a co-op. What we finally agreed on was we'd build the building, we'd give him the whole ground floor, which is commercial space, and we'd give him one apartment in the building, plus $5.7 million. Finally, he agreed. He actually signed it. People couldn't believe it. I actually finally got him to sign on the dotted line. And
Where's this?
And we give him the deposit. So this is 7th Avenue. It's called Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, and this is 128th Street over here. That right next to it is Charlie Rangel's office. He's the congressman who represents Harlem. Right now it's being used as Hillary's Harlem office, Hillary Clinton's presidential, when she pushes for Harlem. This is how it looks like from the sky. This is some of the interesting things around it. Number 4 is Whole Foods. I don't know if you're familiar with Whole Foods. It's like an organic, very hip, trendy, high-end supermarket. And when a Whole Foods arrives at a neighborhood, you know that neighborhood has finally made it. You got the Apollo Theater, historic theater. You have some of these big restaurants that when celebrities come to Harlem, they go to the Red Rooster, they go to Sylvia's. You got these 2 Starbucks on 125th Street. Lennox Coffee is that trendy coffee shop I was talking about earlier. This is just, you see it on a map, you can see it's in proximity to Teachers College, the Columbia City College. It's near a subway, even though you don't see it on this map. So this is some comparables to give you an idea of, we're projecting, I tend to project very conservatively so that we can try to exceed our projections when we go out to sell. We're projecting at about 1,100 a square foot. Some of the other buildings have gotten 1,200. We'll see when it gets closer, when we break ground, we'll adjust it, but I think 1,100 is very doable. This is, very preliminary massing done by the architect, showing that it's going to be 7 stories with setbacks. Layout, you can get 6 apartments on each floor on the lower floors, and then as you get higher, you'll have fewer, larger apartments. Some of them will be duplexes with roof space. One more thing I just want to say is that people ask me, every building you do is in Harlem, why don't you try Brooklyn? I'm getting sent offers about all these other projects all around New York and around the country, and what I tell them is I'm sure there's a lot of money to be made in all these other markets, but Harlem is a market that I really know. I've been there for 10 years. I went to school nearby, high school and college. It's pretty close to where I live. Ideally, I was always told that you should always build where you live. That's the area that you really know. Unfortunately, where I live in Teaneck, New Jersey, there's no market for apartment buildings. It's all single-family homes. But this is very close. It's a 20-minute drive. I actually take my bicycle in when the weather's nice. I ride in from there. And there's one story that sticks in my mind always about why it's so important to build in an area that you know. And that's, someone told me this story about a guy who, 2 people, they got an offer to buy this hotel in Denver Airport, Denver, Colorado. And the offer seemed to them kind of too good to be true, which, as they say, usually is. So they were skeptical. They hired an architect and an engineer to look at the building, make sure it was in decent shape. And seemed to all be fine. They went down there for a trip just to check it out. They saw it was occupied all hours of the night. There were people there. It had a 95% occupancy rate, 12 months out of the year. No matter what was going on, they always had people in there. And they said, "This is amazing. We got a great deal." And they went to the bar to celebrate before waiting for their flight to take them back. And the bartender said to them, "Oh, are you guys the guys from New York who are buying this hotel?" They said, yeah. So he said to them, so what are you guys planning on doing next year when the new airport opens on the other side of town and everything's getting shut down? And they didn't want to admit, they didn't want to look foolish and admit to the fact that they didn't know that. So they were appreciative. They left the bartender a $100 tip, and they went home and they learned, you just, you build the place that you know. And so that's why I'm staying in an area that I really know. So,
This project is you're taking investors for, or?
Yeah, so that's...
And what's your projected,
So, how are you going to go over the numbers, all right?
Yeah, I can answer that one. First of all, thank you very much, Yoni. It was great. As far as the financials on this project, that's also a highlight that I'd like to point out. אני אענה בעברית, בסדר?
מה?
לגבי הגיוס לפרויקט הזה. א', אנחנו מתחילים ממש הערב בגיוס של הפרויקט הזה. ולפרויקט הזה נדרש, העלות של כל הפרויקט הזה